The sun beat down on Tsavo National Park, an oppressive weight that shimmered off the golden-brown savanna grass. Sergeant Elias Juma, a man whose face bore the etched lines of countless patrols and impossible decisions, knelt with one knee in the parched earth, a silent observer in a world of raw power. Just a few feet before him, Askari, a male lion of immense size and terrifying beauty, lay observing him, its amber eyes, usually burning with the primal fire of a king, now held in unnerving stillness, fixed on Elias with an intensity that defied every behavioral pattern he'd learned about wild predators. It was not a predatory stare. It was something else. Something knowing. "Don't move, Elias." Captain Ndolo's voice crackled, thin and metallic, through his earpiece, slicing through the buzzing silence of the plains. "Helicopter 15 minutes out. Maintain position." Elias was a statue, his breath held tight in his chest. His tranquilizer gun, usually his first response in a situation like this, remained holstered, a useless weight against his thigh. He knew the stakes. Askari wasn't just any lion. He was a cornerstone of the local pride, critical to the region's fragile ecosystem, a bulwark against the relentless tide of poachers. To lose him would be a disaster. The lion shifted, a slow, deliberate movement. Askari took 2 careful steps, then lowered himself to the ground with a low, almost human-like groan, a sound of profound discomfort that vibrated in the air. Then, impossibly, he extended his massive right paw toward Elias. "Ah, Jesus Christ," Elias breathed, the words a raw whisper. Instinctively, his hand twitched, raising slightly in a defensive gesture, immediately feeling absurd. The lion wasn't attacking, it wasn't posturing, it was presenting its paw, laid bare for inspection. His eyes, trained to spot the minutiae of the bush, quickly located the problem. Deeply embedded in the thick pad of the lion's paw was a dark, unyielding object, surrounded by a ring of angry, inflamed tissue and dried blood. "There's something in its paw," Elias reported, his voice surprisingly steady, even as his heart hammered against his ribs like a trapped bird. "It appears to be injured." Ndolo's response was immediate, sharp with alarm. "Do not approach. Elias, wait for the veterinary team. That animal is still a wild predator. Do you hear me?" He heard. Every fiber of his training screamed the same warning, yet Askari's behavior continued to defy every single rule. The lion looked at him, its amber eyes holding that same unblinking intensity, then whimpered again, a soft, low sound of distress, and extended its injured paw once more. It was an unmistakable, deliberate plea against direct orders, against every survival instinct screaming for him to freeze or retreat. Elias made an agonizing decision. Slowly, deliberately, he reached up, unclipped his helmet, and set it gently in the dust beside him. It was a profound gesture, an offering of vulnerability to an apex predator. "Okay, big guy," he murmured, his voice low and calm, directed only at the lion. "I see your problem. Let me think about how to help you." Askari remained perfectly still, injured paw extended, its gaze unwavering, as if understanding every word. Elias's intuition, honed over years in the wild, whispered that this was no mere coincidence. This lion was deliberately, intelligently seeking his help. A closer look confirmed his growing fear. The thick, black object wasn't a thorn or a shard of rock. It appeared to be a poacher's crossbow bolt, a clean, targeted strike. Around it, the infection was already rapidly advancing, a deadly clock ticking away inside the king of Tsavo. "Copy that, Captain," Elias responded, his decision made, his conviction solidifying with each beat of his racing heart. "But this lion isn't acting like a predator, it's acting like a patient." Words. 8:46. The harsh sunlight reflected off the small medical kit Elias had opened. With slow, deliberate movements, he pulled on a pair of sterile gloves. Each action telegraphed an unspoken promise of his intentions to the massive predator before him. His knees sank into the unforgiving earth as he inched forward, every muscle screaming at him, every rational thought warning him against this profound gamble. His career, his life balanced precariously on this knife edge. "I'm going to help you, but you need to stay just like that," Elias murmured, his voice a low, steady rumble meant to soothe, not command. "We both want that thing out of your paw, but you can't eat the guy trying to remove it. Deal?" The absurdity of negotiating with a wild animal, a creature capable of tearing him limb from limb in an instant, was not lost on Elias. Yet Askari remained motionless, its amber eyes tracking his every move with an intelligence that seemed to transcend the boundaries of species, suggesting a profound understanding. He closed the final distance, the air thick with tension and the scent of wild animal. In that moment, a strange clarity descended upon Elias, a tunnel vision born of intense combat situations. His focus narrowed to the task, the danger, the injured beast before him. The crossbow bolt was clearly visible, a thick black shaft protruding approximately 8 centimeters from the lion's pad. The entry wound pulsed with an angry redness, swollen and weeping with a purulent discharge, clear signs of a rapidly escalating infection. It was lodged deep, too deep against bone. "I'm within arm's reach, sir. The lion is compliant," Elias reported, his voice flat, but the word compliant felt woefully inadequate. Askari wasn't just compliant. There was an intelligent awareness in its eyes that belied mere animal instinct. Captain Ndolo's voice returned, relaying the urgent instructions from Dr. Kamau, the lead veterinarian. "Apply pressure around the wound to stabilize. Do not attempt removal. I repeat, Sergeant, do not attempt removal." Elias acknowledged the order, a curt, "Understood, Captain." But his instincts, honed by years of field medicine and survival, screamed for immediate action. The infection was advancing, a dark, insidious tide that would claim the lion if not addressed. Every second counted. He reached out, his hand trembling slightly, and gently pressed a piece of antiseptic gauze around the inflamed wound. Askari flinched, a tremor running through its massive frame, but didn't withdraw its paw. Instead, a low rumble emanated from its chest, a deep vibration that Elias felt in the ground beneath him. A sound of pain, yes, but interwoven with what almost sounded like relief. "Oh, good boy," Elias found himself saying, the words escaping unbidden, the kind of gentle praise he'd once reserved for a domestic pet. As he carefully cleaned away the discharge, his gaze fixed on the bolt itself. That's when his blood ran cold. Etched subtly, almost imperceptibly, into the metal shaft of the crossbow bolt was a small, chilling symbol, a rhinoceros horn crossed with a stylized dagger, the insignia of the notorious Nieti Syndicate. "Captain, the bolt has the Nieti insignia," Elias reported, his voice now edged with a new, grim urgency. These weren't opportunistic poachers. This was targeted. The gravity of the situation had just escalated exponentially. The Nieti Syndicate was no ordinary poaching ring. They were a sophisticated, brutal organization, known for their calculated tactics and their focus on high-value targets. Once primarily dealing in rhino horn and elephant ivory, intelligence indicated they were increasingly diversifying into lion parts for the burgeoning black markets. "Understood, Sergeant. Document everything. This could provide valuable intelligence," Captain Ndolo affirmed, the shift in his tone echoing Elias's own somber realization of the discovery's severity. A chilling thought solidified in Elias's mind. Askari hadn't just been randomly injured. The crossbow, a silent but less precise weapon than a rifle, suggested a stealth operation. The lion had likely interrupted a Niati operation, not one targeting him, but perhaps other, equally valuable animals. In the chaos, the Niati had fired, crippling the majestic animal. This was more than an injured lion. It was a frontline casualty in a silent, escalating war. Words, 809. A sudden, violent jerk of Askari's massive head shattered the fragile calm. Muscles tensed under its tawny hide, and a low, guttural warning growl rumbled deep in its chest, vibrating through the ground. Its amber eyes, moments ago fixed on Elias with a trusting gaze, were now locked on something beyond his shoulder, its attention drawn by an unseen threat. "Captain, something's happening. The lion's behavior has changed," Elias reported, his voice tight with renewed tension. He didn't dare turn, every instinct screaming at him to keep his focus on the unpredictable predator. His right hand instinctively moved to the sidearm holstered at his hip, the cold metal a small comfort. Before Ndolo could respond, the soft crunch of dry grass under a boot echoed behind Elias. "U.S. military, identify yourself," he called out sharply, his voice cutting through the savannah air, laced with the authority of command. "Easy, soldier. Dr. Amara Vance, wildlife veterinarian. A clear American female voice replied, devoid of fear tinged with a slight exasperation. I was doing field research nearby, picked up the radio chatter about an injured lion and a U.S. Army presence. Askari let out another low growl, a rumble of caution, but remained in its position, its body subtly shifted, seemingly shielding Elias from the approaching Dr. Vance. It was an unnerving display of protective instinct. Dr. Amara Vance, clad in practical khaki field clothes, her sun-weathered face framed by pulled-back hair, approached cautiously. Her experienced eyes, sharp and intelligent, quickly assessed the extraordinary scene before her. A U.S. Army sergeant kneeling inches from a wild lion, an open medical kit, and the raw vulnerability of both man and beast. He's actually letting you treat him? The radio chatter didn't fully capture how unique this is, Dr. Vance marveled, a note of professional awe in her voice. Her expression, however, darkened considerably as Elias, still kneeling beside Askari, quickly explained the Niati Syndicate's chilling insignia etched into the crossbow bolt. They've been increasingly active. 2 rhinos found dead last week, horns removed with disturbing precision, Dr. Vance confirmed, her tone grim. This big boy might have interrupted their operation, saved some other creature at the cost of his own leg. Elias quickly relayed Dr. Vance's presence and capabilities to Captain Ndolo, a full field surgery kit, powerful antibiotics, and comprehensive pain management protocols. A few tense moments passed as Ndolo verified her credentials, then authorization came through, crisp and immediate. She was cleared to take over. Dr. Vance, moving with a practiced economy of motion, knelt beside Elias, her presence a calming anchor in the charged atmosphere. She began to narrate her movements, a low, reassuring stream of words directed at both Elias and Askari as she prepared a syringe. Okay, big guy, this is going to sting a little, but it will help with the pain. She expertly administered a local anesthetic around the wound. Askari flinched, a tremor rippling through his powerful frame, but remained remarkably still, an almost unbelievable display of trust. I've never seen anything like this in 20 years of wildlife medicine, Dr. Vance murmured, her eyes scanning the deep wound as she prepared her extraction tools. Lions are intelligent, territorial, but this level of trust with humans is unprecedented. It's almost sentient. As she probed, Dr. Vance observed that the bolt was embedded deeper than anticipated. We'll want to run tests on this bolt. There could be DNA evidence, and we absolutely need to check for any toxic substances. Some operations use poisoned weapons, something to disable their prey quickly and silently. Now, the mention of poisoned weapons sent a chilling realization through Elias. This wasn't just poaching, not anymore. This hinted at a darker, more sophisticated human threat. This was a deliberate escalation against wildlife. Moving beyond simple greed, this wasn't merely about rhino horn or lion parts. It was about disabling and killing animals in potentially horrific ways, suggesting a deeper, more malicious intent from the Syndicate. It suggested they might be testing new methods of harm, perhaps even for other, more nefarious purposes. The human-related danger extended far beyond simple snares or rifles, hinting at advanced, unethical methods that blurred the lines between conservation and something akin to biowarfare against nature, with a possible corporate or governmental cover-up lurking beneath the surface. For 15 tense minutes, a strange, unspoken alliance held. Elias and Dr. Vance worked in silent, seamless coordination. Vance, her brow furrowed in concentration, focused on the delicate extraction, her hands moving with practiced precision around the inflamed paw. Elias, meanwhile, remained inches from Askari's massive head, his low, steady voice a continuous hum of reassurance, his presence a living anchor in the lion's tumultuous world. Then, with a soft, almost imperceptible click, the metal bolt finally slid free. Dr. Vance held it up briefly, a chilling trophy of cruelty, before placing it carefully into a sterile evidence bag for further testing. The wound, now open and exposed, began to bleed freely. Without hesitation, Dr. Vance immediately flushed it thoroughly with antiseptic solution, then applied a potent cocktail of antibiotics and pressure, securing a clean bandage firmly around the paw. He's going to need follow-up treatment, but at least now he has a chance, Dr. Vance said, her voice laced with an undeniable tremor of relief as she straightened, wiping a bead of sweat from her temple. Askari, as if understanding every word, turned its massive head toward Dr. Vance. Its amber eyes, deep and knowing, studied her with the same intense, almost human-like focus it had directed at Elias moments earlier. It was a gaze that suggested profound awareness and perhaps even gratitude. "I think he's thanking you," Elias said, surprised by the raw emotion that colored his own voice. He felt it deep in his gut, an inexplicable connection, sensing an awareness in the creature that went far beyond mere instinct. Dr. Vance offered a slight smile, a brief, professional acknowledgement without looking up from her work. "Animals live in the moment, Sergeant. They don't have our concepts of gratitude." Yet, even as the words left her lips, Elias sensed a flicker of doubt in her own conviction, a hint that even she was questioning her long-held scientific certainties. To underscore their inexplicable bond, Ascari accepted a second injectable antibiotic and painkiller without a single twitch of resistance. Its gaze, steady and unwavering, never left Elias's face, reinforcing the extraordinary connection forged in the crucible of pain and trust. The distant thrum of helicopter rotors grew steadily louder, cutting through the vast silence of the savannah. The Kenya Wildlife Service team was inbound. Captain Ndolo's voice crackled over the radio, confirming their rapidly approaching status. "Dr. Vance has successfully removed the bolt and treated the wound," Elias reported, his voice clear and concise. "The lion remains calm and non-aggressive." "Remarkable," Captain Ndolo replied, his tone reflecting the sheer disbelief of the situation. He relayed Dr. Kamau's query about the necessity of sedation for a full examination and the placement of a tracking collar. Dr. Vance, after observing Ascari's truly extraordinary behavior, preferred to avoid sedation. She cited the inherent risks of anesthesia for such a large, injured animal, and more strikingly, expressed confidence in Ascari's continued compliance for the collar placement. It was an unprecedented call, a testament to the scene unfolding before them. As the helicopter descended, its powerful downdraft whipping up a swirling vortex of dust and grass, Ascari's muscles tensed, a low growl rumbling in its chest once more. Elias, acting purely on instinct, placed a hand gently, yet firmly, on its shoulder. It was a gesture that, under any normal circumstance, would have been suicidal, an invitation to a swift, brutal death. But Ascari, feeling the reassuring pressure, slowly, carefully, settled back down, its eyes still fixed on the approaching aircraft. "They're here to help you too," Elias soothed, his palm flat against the powerful, rippling muscles beneath the lion's fur. Dr. Kamau, the Kenya Wildlife Service senior veterinarian, was the first to approach from the newly landed helicopter. His expression was a profound mixture of disbelief and intense professional curiosity. He took in the sight of Elias, still kneeling beside the lion, and Dr. Vance, gathering her instruments, the massive animal calmly accepting their presence. "In 30 years of wildlife medicine," Dr. Kamau finally said, his voice hushed, "I have never witnessed such a scene. If you're gripped by the raw tension and the shocking implications of this escalating conspiracy, make sure you hit that like button, share this video with fellow truth seekers, and subscribe to unravel the full story. The danger is real, the threats are immediate, and the stakes couldn't be higher. Don't miss what happens next." Working together, a surreal tableau under the blistering sun, the veterinary team, with Dr. Vance taking the lead, completed Ascari's comprehensive field examination. Despite the profound injury, the magnificent beast was estimated to be a robust 8 years old, otherwise in good health. As the team expertly fitted a GPS tracking collar around Ascari's powerful neck, Elias remained at his side, his voice a continuous calming murmur, his steady presence an inexplicable anchor for the wild animal. "We'll name him Ascari," Dr. Kamau declared, his voice carrying the weight of the moment as he entered the designation into his tablet. "It means soldier in Swahili, appropriate given the circumstances and his incredible fortitude." Once the examination was complete, the team cautiously backed away, leaving Elias and Dr. Vance with Ascari. The question hung in the hot, still air, heavy with unspoken significance. What now? The shared ordeal was over, the immediate danger averted, but the connection remained. "The medication will make him drowsy," Dr. Vance explained quietly, her eyes softening as she looked at the lion. "He should rest here for a while. The tracking collar will monitor his recovery, give us valuable data on his movements and healing." Elias nodded, a profound reluctance warring with the cold logic of reality. He knew, despite the bond they had forged, that Ascari was a wild animal, a king of the savannah, belonging to its vast, untamed expanse. Yet Breaking this connection felt like a betrayal. "Time for me to go, Ascari," he said softly, his voice thick with a genuine emotion that surprised him. "You take care of that paw." Ascari blinked slowly, his amber eyes half-lidded, a gesture Elias interpreted as a silent acknowledgement, a profound act of trust. Then, to the astonishment of everyone still within sight, Ascari extended its uninjured paw, a massive furred limb, and placed it gently, briefly, on Elias's knee before settling back down, its eyes finally closing in a deep, medicinal slumber. 6 months later, the golden grasslands of Tsavo shimmered under a different sun. Elias stood on an observation platform, a pair of high-powered binoculars trained on a familiar figure in the distance. Ascari, powerful and majestic, was now fully integrated with the pride, moving with a strength and fluidity that betrayed no sign of his past injury. The glint of his GPS collar was a small, reassuring beacon against the wild expanse. "Ascari has fully integrated." Dr. Vance's voice crackled through the tablet Elias held, her tone filled with professional satisfaction. His hunting success rate returned to normal within weeks. "He's thriving." The ripple effect of that fateful day extended far beyond Ascari's recovery. The evidence from the crossbow bolt, painstakingly analyzed for DNA and material composition, had been instrumental. Leveraging intelligence from KWS and Interpol, coordinated raids had been conducted on 3 separate Niati Syndicate locations. 6 arrests were made, with more pending, a significant blow to the organization. "Your encounter with Ascari may have done more for conservation than a year of regular patrols," Dr. Vance stated, a hint of awe in her voice. Elias lowered his binoculars, watching Ascari move with his pride, a potent symbol of resilience. The official reports had naturally downplayed the inexplicable aspects of their encounter, the sheer sentience and trust. But Elias and everyone else who had witnessed it knew they had seen something beyond conventional understanding, a glimpse into a deeper connection between species. "My deployment ends next month," Elias said, his gaze still fixed on the distant lion. "I've applied to the International Anti-Poaching Foundation's Ranger Training Program." That day had irrevocably changed his perspective. These animals weren't just resources, abstract symbols of conservation. They were individuals with intelligence and an awareness that humans were only just beginning to comprehend. They required a deeper, more personal commitment to protect, a truth Elias was now ready to dedicate his life to. The raids on the Niati Syndicate were hailed as a victory, a significant blow to poaching operations. But for Elias, now a ranger trainer, the true horror lay not just in the arrests, but in the deeper analysis of the crossbow bolt's composition. Trace elements revealed something far more insidious than crude poisoning. It suggested sophisticated chemical compounds designed specifically to incapacitate targets for live capture, possibly for genetic material harvesting or illegal animal testing. The savannah, once a battleground against simple poachers, was now revealed as the frontier of a global classified incident. Ascari, once a patient, had become a guardian. Rangers reported his heightened vigilance, an almost strategic sense. There were unusual movements by his pride when poachers were detected, almost as if Ascari understood the threat and communicated it, coordinating defensive maneuvers. This wasn't just instinct, it was a profound, almost human-like intelligence. Elias, immersing himself in intelligence briefings, began to see the bigger picture. The Niati Syndicate was merely a symptom, a visible arm of something far larger. A shadowy network of corporate entities and wealthy individuals funded these operations not just for traditional black markets, but seeking rare animal parts for undisclosed bioenhancement research. Whispers circulated of clandestine labs in remote regions, experimenting with animal DNA, trying to replicate or even enhance traits for military or pharmaceutical purposes, fueled by the very syndicates Elias was now fighting. His new mission became a silent war against this hidden enemy. He trained local teams not just in anti-poaching tactics, but in understanding the unseen intelligence of the animals they protected, a bond forged from his encounter with Ascari. The story of Ascari and Elias became legend among the rangers. Other animals, seemingly aware, began to exhibit unique behaviors around trusted rangers, a subtle, collective intelligence emerging in response to the escalating human threats. Elias realized the true final confrontation wasn't a single battle, but an ongoing complex struggle against powerful, faceless organizations willing to exploit nature at any cost. The toxic substances on the bolt were just one piece of a much larger, darker puzzle, potentially involving genetically enhanced animals or bioengineered diseases targeting specific species for economic gain. This hinted at deep corporate greed exposed in ecological warfare. Ascari in his prime continued to thrive, often observed by researchers demonstrating problem-solving abilities previously thought impossible for a wild lion, coordinating hunts with surprising efficiency. Elias carried the agonizing decision of breaking protocol not as a burden, but as a badge of honor. It had opened his eyes to a truth far stranger and more dangerous than he could have imagined. The hidden human forces weren't just poachers, but scientists and financiers operating in the shadows. Their goal not just profit, but control over nature itself, turning its wonders into weapons or commodities. Ascari's original plea for help was not just an act of desperation, but perhaps the first step in a nascent interspecies understanding, an evolutionary adaptation against an evolving human threat. Elias now understood that the natural world was fighting back, and individuals like Ascari were at the forefront, requiring human allies who dared to listen. Driven by Ascari's unprecedented gratitude and intelligence, Elias dedicated his life to exposing these nature's dark secrets, believing that understanding the animal's intelligence was key to unlocking the truth of the conspiracy and securing their survival. The scorched earth of Tsavo, once merely a backdrop for anti-poaching patrols, had transformed into the silent theater of a global classified incident. What began with Sergeant Elias Juma kneeling in the golden grass, confronted by Ascari's impossible plea, its amber eyes fixed on him with an unnatural intensity, had unraveled into a horrifying revelation of corporate greed exposed. The lion's unnerving intelligence was not just an anomaly, it was a key. Elias now knew that Ascari's trust was a call to a deeper war, a silent conflict waged by faceless powers, utilizing sophisticated bioengineering, not just for profit, but for control over nature itself. No longer just a soldier, Elias, as a ranger trainer, dedicated his life to exposing these nature's dark secrets. He taught his teams to listen, to observe, to understand the subtle collective intelligence now emerging from the animals themselves, a profound, almost evolutionary adaptation to human threats. Ascari, thriving and watchful, became a legend, his story a testament that the line between instinct and sentience was far blurrier than science had acknowledged. Elias's initial agonizing decision to break protocol, born of compassion, had not only saved a life, but had opened his eyes to a truth. The natural world was fighting back, and it desperately needed human allies who dared to believe and who dared to listen. The deep, unsettling mystery of Ascari's gaze was, in fact, the first whisper of a truth too dark for most to comprehend.